Welcome to another episode of the House Huddle Podcast. Here are your hosts, Rob Schwartz and Justin Onayemi, two Bears fans who decided talking into a microphone was better than shouting at their television.
Happy Halloween from the House Huddle. As always, I'm Rob Schwartz and joined with my co-host, Justin Onayemi.
What's up, everybody? We are doing episode 20. We have to talk about the game on Sunday. Yesterday. My days are all thrown off.
Yeah, yesterday.
Seems like a long time ago. Just yesterday. A loss to the Cowboys, but we also want to talk about the breaking news from today, which was the trade of Roquan Smith. Want me to give the details? I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone knows, but Roquan Smith to the Ravens for a second round and a fifth round pick, along with linebacker AJ Klein. And that fifth round pick is actually likely to end up being New England's fifth.
Oh, okay.
Because Baltimore has 2 fifths, and it will be whichever one is better.
Nice. I actually didn't hear that part of it.
So and there was a lot of kind of key parts to the trade that I think make it really clever on both sides. But
yeah,
we'll talk about that a little bit later. But what is your initial take?
Well, and the other thing, too, is they did the same thing they did with Philadelphia, is they basically ate all of Roquan's 2022 salary on top of, the guaranteed money that he had, which actually in this case he didn't have any because it was the end of his contract. So it's just this salary. I think their Ravens are paying
$800,000.
Yeah, basically $800,000.
Yeah, that was another clever part. I think both sides did little clever things to make this a pretty cool trade for both sides.
It'll be really interesting. So I'm on the fence with this because I have to go back to where I was prior to all of this happening. Like going into the 2022 season, I was a proponent of paying Roquan Smith. Like I think many people were. I think he is a top 3 linebacker. I had no problem putting him somewhere in between Shaquille Leonard and Fred Warner as far as the salary goes. I didn't think he deserved more than Shaquille Leonard. And it sounded like, the rumors are that they offered him somewhere around that, I think it's 18 million range, but he wanted to be the next highest paid linebacker and be over 20. And we all know he doesn't have an agent. So that definitely has been playing a key role, I think, in all of this, as Ryan Poles and him just can't seem to get on the same page. It'll be interesting to see if Baltimore pays him because they're also dealing with contract negotiations with Lamar Jackson, and who
also doesn't have an agent.
Yes, I think they're like one of the only few.
Well, I don't know about that, but they're 2 prominent players that are in the same exact situation now, both on the same team. This is another part where I'm saying you see a little bit of clever part of this deal. I think from Baltimore's standpoint, just like we said, Philadelphia dealing for Quinn and thinking, can this player be that key difference for us between making the playoffs and winning a Super Bowl? They're all in on Roquan for this year.
Right.
But if they lose him, they can actually recoup most likely a compensatory pick in the 3rd round. So now what did you really give up? You gave up a second and a fifth that wasn't your fifth,
right?
And acquired a guy that made a huge difference in your hopes, and you get that 3rd round pick when he leaves.
Yeah,
so there's a good chance he's not a part of their long-term plans. And from Roquan's perspective, he bet on himself. Now he'll be even more high profile for the league to see what he has to offer. Because if he is that difference maker, if he has like that Von Miller impact that he had for the Rams, then you get that payday you're looking for. And it doesn't matter if it's from the Ravens.
Right. And I gotta, I just have to preface, I said in my opinion, I think he's a top 3 linebacker, but at the same time, outside of Shaquille Leonard, and I put Roquan above Fred Warner. Outside of Shaquille Leonard, off the ball linebackers are the running backs of the defense. Like, they are valued less. They should be paid less. I think everyone should be paid what they should be paid. But if you're looking at the business structure of it, they're typically paid less. The Bears offered him a contract that they felt was fair. He didn't like it. At one point, demanded a trade.
Yeah.
he played decent this year. Like, he has had some high impact games. Last week, he had a very low impact game. Actually, it was a really rough game. But overall, I mean, the guy has 2 interceptions on the year. I don't know how many forced fumbles at the moment. He's got only 1 forced fumble.
2 sacks.
2 sacks, actually 2.5 sacks.
Okay.
And he leads the league in combined tackles with 83. 83 combined tackles. Some guys don't even hit 83 tackles in a season.
Yeah.
And we're at the week 8 mark.
Yeah. I mean, you can't question those types of stats. And I know some people who maybe want to be more critical of the Bears for making a trade of this player will point to those types of stats and say, how could you trade someone with that much impact? Right. But the thing is, I believe that they felt that they weren't going to be able to re-sign him. I also believe they didn't really want to re-sign him at a certain point. Yes. Right, at a certain point. And I'm not going to even fault them for that. Because when you keep saying he's top 3, and I'd say, yeah, top 3, at worst, top 5. But I'm curious, what's the difference between number 3 and number 14?
Right.
And you look at some of these players in college, I don't know specific players, but at that position, you get a guy who's just a great athlete. I mean, pretty much pick any SEC team, and you probably could find a guy who could have that kind of impact when schemed correctly and was surrounded with other players who are talented. And with the amount of cap space the Bears are going to have, with the amount of assets they're acquiring with all of these trades, and we've seen Poles turn 5 picks into 11.
Now he has 9.
He could turn that into 15. Or maybe he goes the other way. You can trade up. You can trade back.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if he uses the 2 seconds to get a first or uses a second and a third to get another first.
Exactly.
Depending on how the draft goes. I don't think he's going to reach.
But you have options.
Yeah.
You have assets. You have all sorts of things. This is not what we've been seeing in years past. When you're trading away assets, you're chasing in free agency, you're always behind. That's why the cupboard was so bare. And that's why you see the product on the field, which we'll talk about later. And that's why when you really come down to it, even though Roquan made a huge difference in some games, your only hope of getting anything back for him was right now.
Yeah, and that was my point. I think he's, they got a second and a fifth for him in a point where, like you said, we don't think that he was going to be back. And we have a situation where the return is frustrating to me a little bit. Like, you have a top 10 draft pick. What it does is it kind of just points out, like, look, I go back to the running back of the defense. Don't be spending a top 10 draft pick on an off the ball linebacker. Like, is that another knock on Ryan Pace? I don't know. I mean, he's lived up to that draft pick and not getting a first round pick back. I think a lot of people are going to be upset. I initially was. But I've come back. Like I said, I was on the fence. I've come back. And my reaction to this also has changed after I've seen the interaction that we've seen from Roquan Smith. This isn't the first time that he's caused a problem with contract negotiations. He did it his rookie year too. So I think it's just a headache thing to get rid of him, get what you can, which was a solid return. I mean, if you think about it, it was a very solid return. And like you said, now he has 9 picks to work with instead of 5.
Right.
He might be a great player, but he's somewhat replaceable. You might not get some of the high impact plays, but you can easily find a linebacker who's going to get you 60 to 80 tackles, solo tackles in a season.
Yeah. So it's funny that you had said maybe you were hoping he'd be able to lure a first round pick. And if I understood what you just said, it was almost like, well, they took him at number 9, I want to say, overall.
He was 9, yeah.
So top 10 pick. And so then now you're saying, well, when you trade for him, you should be able to acquire similar to what you gave up.
I'm not saying that.
There is some, what is the term?
Depreciation.
Depreciation value. Yeah, there's some mileage, right? Yeah. And I think it's the opposite of that. Like when you say that's the running back of the defense, which kind of implies, hey, you can get a guy. Lots of people think that. And that's why when Roquan was demanding the type of money he was, and the Bears didn't just call his bluff, I don't know that anyone else was going to pay him that.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think if you can get that much back for somebody at a position where a lot of teams are going to run with just a mid-range free agent or a mid-range draft pick who's got potential at that position. And the Bears will probably be one of those teams.
I'm going to throw out a hypothetical. This is a complete projection hypothetical, okay? We saw Roquan Smith's initial reaction to the Robert Quinn trade when it happened. He was in the middle of a press conference, found out in that press conference, got emotional to the point where he basically had to finish the press conference. Is it possible, because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, is it possible, because even Robert Quinn said, like, he's my little brother, like, he was clearly a mentor to him. Very different personalities, but definitely a mentor to him. Also, let me throw this in there. They traded away both their two defensive captains now. Had to promote Eddie Jackson today, which made me realize he wasn't going to be traded before the trade deadline. Now they're going to have to find another captain to name onto the defense. I don't know who that'll be. We'll figure that out later.
You're saying because he was promoted, he won't be traded?
Yeah.
Why? If they've already traded two others?
Why would they give him the promotion now?
Right? I know. I don't know. I think that seems a little overblown to me, but go ahead.
I mean, you could have just waited then until Wednesday when you had actual practice,
yeah.
And then the trade line's done.
I'm just saying when you identify your captains at the beginning of when you identify your captains at the beginning of the season, a lot of the qualities and traits that you would want a captain to represent, and you end up being a team that, for whatever reason, and this is becoming more of a trend in football than it ever was in the past, teams do trade. There are sellers at the trade deadline and buyers.
It's not basketball, but
right,
it didn't
used to happen that often at all.
A lot busy.
And now it happens.
Yeah.
So the Bears, I mean, they're obviously sellers. They're a new regime. He's cleaning house. So it's going to be the players that have captain traits, I would think.
Sure.
Why would other teams want your not captains off a bad team?
Had he been a captain already, I don't think it would be an issue. I just don't see Matt
right. Promote him and then the next day.
Bringing it up
Yeah, okay. That's
and
fair.
then... if it happens, wow, what a slap in the face.
Well, true. But here's my question. So when people say, and I mean, I'm just going to say people are saying it. It doesn't matter. I don't know if there's validity behind it. But when they say the Bears may not be done, do you more think that means more selling or a surprise buy of why not? You've acquired some picks. Maybe now you're able to package picks for a young receiver.
If I had to guess, the only person that might be a possibility, and it's only because Ryan Poles is going to do his due diligence, is Elijah Moore out of New York. He had 7 snaps last week after being benched after requesting a trade.
What would that cost the Bears?
So the reports are they would take a 4th rounder, and I would give up a 4th for him.
Wow.
But
you just acquired a 4th.
Right.
So you have 2 of those.
So, no, you credit a 5th. But
no, I meant Robert Quinn.
Oh, right. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. It's
interesting.
It'll be an interesting thing. But, I mean, I don't think David Montgomery's going to be out. I don't think he's going to be traded. But I wouldn't also say 100% he's not. I guess I can't 100% say that Eddie Jackson will be traded. I just feel
your point is valid. Your point is valid. So let's say he's not.
But
Tevin Jenkins' name keeps coming up. Now that would be bums me out.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that
because
he's still a young building block.
Yes, and he's probably your best player on the line.
Yes,
we haven't talked the game yet, but there was one point where he went off injured for a moment.
Yes,
and at that point to take the snap, I go, the only player on that line who was a starter at day one is a 5th round rookie at left tackle. The rest of the line was well, actually, Mustapher must have still been at center at the time.
Yeah, he came back in. Yeah, because of Patrick being gone.
I just refused to remember him, I guess. But it was patchwork everywhere else.
Yeah.
I know we're not talking the game quite
and
yet.
Technically, he was patchwork, too, because he was not supposed to be the starter at the beginning of the season.
That's true. So any last thoughts on the Roquan deal? Or
I mean, I think it's a good deal for both sides. I think Baltimore's getting a really good player. Like you said, I mean, maybe this helps them in a very tough AFC. Ryan Poles now has more draft capital to use at his exposure, at his disposal. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Real quick. I would say the 3 high-profile trades that he's made, and we're talking selling because it's a rebuild, was Mack, Quinn, and Roquan.
Yeah.
And the teams they went to, Chargers, Eagles, Ravens, I mean, you're naming teams that could be in their respective championship, AFC, NFC championship. They could represent in the Super Bowl. Do you think there's anything to Poles, like, allowing these veterans to go to a good situation? Like, I've heard something about that. But
It could be. I mean, I definitely think that's the case with Robert Quinn. And I definitely think there was some validity to that with Khalil Mack. I don't really know if he cared one
Just
way
the
or
best
the other
deal,
with
the best
Roquan
offer.
Smith.
Yeah.
But, to your quick question or response to what you kind of earlier said was a couple people that could be on the table besides, and I'm hoping not Tevin Jenkins, but like, could you get rid of some of these veterans that are on a 1-year deal? You got Byron Pringle coming back here. Is Dante Pettis someone that someone might want for a cheap, 6th, 7th rounder?
Interesting.
Stuff like that. These guys that aren't going to be here, that they've seen a little bit of production, not a lot, but a little, that they're willing to give, throw a bone, see what happens. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, interesting. Well, we know Poles has shown a willingness to deal. He appears to have a plan or a philosophy or whatever you want to call it, because
Well, we shouldn't be surprised.
no, we shouldn't at all.
He first said, we're going to build through the draft.
You got to get picks because he only had 5. We were like, how are you going to build through the draft with 5 picks?
Yeah.
Well, we saw it.
And it's been working. I mean, to a degree.
And some people already want to kind of, because obviously now, if you're a Poles supporter, which I don't know why you wouldn't be, as a Bears fan, if a person's brand new, you think you'd want to get behind them, but you have the right to feel however you want to feel. But
It's a toxic.
it's
a toxic fan base.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. But he's acquiring lots and lots of picks.
Yeah.
And they have lots and lots of cap space.
Yeah.
But some people are already trying to act like he's bad at free agency. And they're pointing to Ogunjobi falling through. That was the physical. And you couldn't check them beforehand because of a rule that I think is a dumb rule.
And I was upset about it a little bit to that point, but he's not doing anything in Pittsburgh.
Right. And you would have paid him a heck of a lot more.
Right.
And then, was it Bates?
Oh, yeah, Ryan Bates.
Ryan Bates
Buffalo.
from Buffalo. They made an offer, which Buffalo had the right to match, and they did.
And
people are looking at that
they were going to.
Right. And people are like, so I'm like, that's not even the type of money we're talking about this time around.
Right.
And with the draft capital.
Well, and the other people that he brought in, like Al-Quinine Muhammad, people that were familiar with Eberflus's system, help you get into the hits principle right away, might not make an impact on the field as much, but they're only here for a year or two.
Right. Those were smart deals because he's not committing to these people. Right. He's filling out a roster. Now, they had hardly a roster.
Lucas Patrick does look like a whiff and a miss.
Okay.
But you're bringing in a guy who was familiar with Luke Getsy. It made sense at the time. I can justify it on paper.
Okay.
It just hasn't worked out. Injuries.
Justin Jones looks like a good, solid signing.
He's been fine. I mean, he's not been fantastic.
That was their pivot off of the situation, that they were put in. So
and maybe this trade for N'Keal Harry. I mean, already got a touchdown in his, second game.
Right.
Back from being injured. Like,
is that our transition? Well,
yeah, let's make that our transition. I'm done with the Roquan Smith stuff. So
we both think it's a good deal for both sides.
Yeah. So happy Halloween. Enjoy these ads, and hopefully they're not Packers ads.
All right, Hallis Huddle listeners and viewers, welcome back to episode 20. This is Justin Oniemi. I'm with Chester Cheetah.
I don't know.
Rob Schwartz.
Do they roar? I don't even know if cheetahs make a sound.
I think he always made the sound of crunching on Cheetos. Yeah.
Yeah.
At some point, he talked and he had a weird voice.
He did. It was like a deep voice, I feel like.
I mean, it'd be kind of odd if it was like a high-pitched one, wouldn't it?
I guess. And some very awkward, weird commercials. Like, I remember some dad, he was like,
Cheetos?
He was like finding fingerprints and stuff all over the house. And it was like, first it was the kids, and then it was the wife, and then it was like the dog.
Yeah. We could do a little spin-off at some point about weirdest or funniest or commercials and things from our childhood. But
that'll be interesting.
We know Eagle Man would make the list, of course. Eagle Woman, too.
There's an eagle woman?
You never saw that?
Oh my
Well,
gosh.
because they realized men
was-
wouldn't have laid an egg, so like years later they did an eagle woman one, but it was still just as corny.
I've never.
Oh, you gotta look that up.
Yeah.
You gotta look that up.
Okay.
It's like the only correction they made, but
It
I mean, it was making fun of itself.
I have something for you.
Boom. And then they're like dodging it. Yeah, classic. See, when I open back in, we never get to the point. So
This is the fun time. This is like the after hours party.
there you go. Except the listeners are all a part of it. So.
That's right.
But we had, in the first part of the show, broke down the Roquan Smith trade, which led to just speaking about Ryan Poles in general, which got us talking about an acquisition of N'Keal Harry, former first-round pick, for just a seventh-round pick, and unfortunately got injured towards the end of camp, or was it in one of the preseason games?
No, end of camp.
End of camp. So really just got into game action last week against New England, which was his former team.
Yep.
It looked like right away they wanted to get him involved, and they did, and saw some cool, positive things. But then, I don't know, he wasn't totally a part of the plan further in, and that could be getting up to game speed.
Exactly. I mean,
But then he
he's
showed
had
out
the
in this game.
playbook, but you still you got to get
Yeah.
into it. I feel like.
So I was going to toss us back in by pivoting from the N'Keal Harry right into the game, but I feel like, do we have to start with Fields?
I mean,
He'll come up a lot.
he's going to come up a lot.
He'll come up a lot.
I'm actually a week behind on my Fields focused episodes, so I am going to really try hard
Double feature?
to get this done. And also, my plan is to go back because I'm creating a spreadsheet so I can keep track of what grades I have assigned him for each week.
Smart.
But I also want to keep track of a couple other things like design runs for him. Like we saw 12 of them against New England. I'm curious. I haven't looked to see how many they had this week, but I
think
still
it was
feel
6
like
to 8, maybe.
I was gonna say I feel like it was 6 to 8,
Nice.
right? Like, so I want to keep
Which might
track
be
of that.
we can talk maybe later, but that's probably the sweet spot.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know, double digits every week.
No.
You're getting into Cam Newton territory.
yeah. I don't want to see that, but at the same time too, like I also want to keep track of how many passes were there that were perfect
Pinpoint accurate,
but dropped,
but dropped.
and where would that have put him for yardage? Because we keep seeing the guy can't even throw for 200 yards. Well, if you do combine his running with his throwing, he's over 200 every week.
Well, do
Like-
you want to know 2 that should have been caught?
I can tell you two that should have been caught.
Very obvious, right?
So Velus Jones,
Bayless
again,
Jones. I mean, that has to be caught.
it has to be caught. This is your third round pick. I know he's third rounder, but like you brought him in to help out.
And there was the defender had no impact on that.
No.
That's the same as if you ran it by yourself.
The second one was a little bit more difficult if we're thinking the same one.
Well, okay, we are.
But it was a free play.
Equanimous St. Brown, right?
Yeah.
Now, here's my thing. Yes, he should have caught it. But in my opinion, he should have caught it or drawn a pass interference.
I
A
see what
good
you're
receiver
saying.
would have done that.
Yeah,
Because
I
this
see what
one
you're
was
saying.
more contested. You could either put your body more into him,
Yeah.
draw more contact, it's a pass interference.
Think basketball.
Or catch it.
Think basketball. How many guys go for jump shots and literally jump into you? And I know they've been trying to crack down a little bit in that, but like oh my god, I almost said Grant Hill. Be Dwayne Wade. Like jump into it. Come on.
That was the first offensive play of the Bears, and that's after the defense. I mean, it was a premonition of what was going to occur the rest of the time, but it was just a march down the field.
Yeah.
A march. Like, I don't think they had any answer for any play.
They did not see the punter on the field until the second half.
Well, I'm just talking about the first drive. It was just a
you're talking
march
about-
down the field,
yes,
7.
yeah.
So then the Bears' first play was a bomb
Yes.
to Equanimous St. Brown. And I just wrote here, better receiver, makes catch, or draws pass interference.
Okay, so we're actually thinking of two separate ones. now.
Aha.
So that one I did feel was a little underthrown.
It was underthrown.
but it
Could
was
have
still
or should have been
catchable.
caught. Yes, catchable.
Okay. I'm actually referring to it was a free play. They drew the guy off sides.
Yes.
Not quite as far, but still a 30-plus yard pass.
Mm-hmm.
Would have been right at the end zone. And, yeah, same thing. Like he still could have drawn a flag on that play. Not double covered, but there was two
Okay.
guys there. And it hit him right in the hands. Like, again, like if you're going to give that to, like, let's say a Tyreek Hill or an A.J. Brown, like we're seeing all these elite wide receivers given to these young quarterbacks, and we're seeing them just blossom.
Mm-hmm.
They need help. They do. It's not a one-person game. You can't catch your own passes unless
So-
you're Brett Favre.
So who else did? Mariota did it
Maybe.
in a,
I just
in a
remember that
playoff game. I want to say
that's like the whole trivia thing. I'm sure everyone
was
has
his
heard this
first-
by now.
yeah.
Yeah, his first NFL pass and his first NFL catch was himself.
that's interesting. And he's a selfish guy, so it all fits in the end. What were you? You gave me something there. Oh, I mean, you can't even fault him for some of these drops that he's seen, but I just think overall he's a lot more effective than people are giving him credit for.
Yes, because the stats don't fully
Right.
reflect it.
And I don't even. I mean, he keeps saying it. He's not about the stats, all that, and nor should you be. It's about what's out on the field. But that's what I was going to say. I want to see, and I'm not giving you homework, but if I were you, because you've been doing the all 22 very well, and you have some of the notes already. Have you been rating every game for Fields?
I did not start until week 3 or 4.
And the only reason I say that is I saw a statistic that said over the last 4 weeks, his QBR is like number 11 in the league or something like that.
Okay.
And of his draft class, just comparing to other second-year quarterbacks, he's
way
far away ahead of all of them.
Yeah.
And you can't just always pick, any chunk of games, but it's the 4 most recent.
Correct. Yeah.
Which is a relevant thing to look at.
Yeah.
The arrow is up.
And and it's not just like luck of the draw, like you're playing, the Detroit Lions every week. They play the Dallas Cowboys, who only gave up 26 points to the Philadelphia Eagles, who are still undefeated.
Right.
Like their offense is starting to click. In fact, I tweeted out today. They have 62 points over the last 2 weeks. And honestly, it could be 64 had they just decided to kick the extra points, but they correctly went for 2 in those positions.
Yeah, those
right?
were justifiable.
Oh, totally.
I'd like to see them run better plays.
Yeah.
One of them, they just let a guy break right in,
Oh,
nearly killed Fields.
Oh, I was surprised again he got up. I mean,
but that was obviously a missed assignment.
Yeah, it was.
It can't be the play.
It was bad.
But I'm saying if you're going for 2, I feel like how many of those have you called? Like how many? You must have a few you really like and that you would go to and know how to do them.
Yeah, apparently not. We've had a bit,
but the line's been rotating in.
But think about it: a 2-point conversion is just like the dread zone, right?
You're right.
So
can we back it up? Take it from where we kick the extra point,
right?
But we're going for 2.
They'll probably feel better about it. Can you have a delay? No, you can't have a delay a game on that. Can you have a false start and still be able to do it?
Delay of game.
Okay. Well, let's have something like that happen.
Get creative, guys.
Back up. But anyway, so 62 points over the last 2 weeks. That's 40% of their total score for the entire season.
Right.
Over 2 weeks.
Right.
Like the offense is starting to click, and you're seeing it with. I think Luke Getsy and Justin Fields are finally getting to the point where they're more on the same page, and we're seeing development from Justin Fields. And I'm going to talk a huge one right here, and we saw it against the New England Patriots. We saw it again 2 more times in this game. But the little screenplay where he has to pump fake and sidearm.
Yeah.
And he's fine with changing those angles. When we give Patrick Mahomes and all these guys these, oh my gosh, look at the arm angles. Well, we're seeing it now with Justin Fields. Mm-hmm. It's exciting to see that he's learning from his mistakes and not just continuously doing the same ones over and over again.
Right. Yeah, that's progress. That's growth. It's what you're hoping to see from every player on the field. But when you're the quarterback, it's right there for everyone to see.
Yeah.
And I wrote this down. It wasn't after a particular play. In fact, I think it was after a frustrating play. But I just put Fields is a weapon. And Getsy knows this. And Getsy is starting to show this with the way he's scheming things. That being said, I felt there were a few weird calls that weren't necessary at all that
it happened.
Showed desperation, kind of. It was a very weird play, and had it worked or been executed better, maybe we'd be talking about it.
Look at this!
They did a wide receiver screen to Pettis, who then does tries to do a backwards pass across the field and to Montgomery.
Yeah, it was bad.
That was a bit weird, but the one that's just a weird play. Again, if it works, he's a genius.
Yeah, and it kind of did.
Oh, they were really bought in.
They only had
nobody was on the backside of the field.
Plenty of Chicago guys,
but there's a reason it didn't. Many reasons it didn't work.
Correct.
But I'm more talking about. I want to say 2 different 3rd and 3s, and one of them did actually work. So it's one of those okay, whatever. where they run Wildcat with Montgomery at quarterback and faking the handoff to Fields.
Yep.
Cool play, and it puts something in everyone's mind now, and now every opponent after this, especially if they end up running this with some success, is going to have to look at it. But those were high leverage situations. 3rd and 3.
But in their defense, it failed the first time, and I do think the second time they ran it, when they got a first down on the drive, or on that run, I think because they thought it went to Montgomery the first time, it was going to go to Fields this time.
I see.
And I think they bit a little bit more.
Okay. Well, because now, if you think about it, there are so many options off of that.
Well,
because he could hand it to Fields, and Fields could still throw.
We keep talking about how they can build off of these things.
Right.
And we were talking about how they had to do that from the New England game. Like, they had to build on things that were working, because you can't do the same things over and over again. You have to throw wrinkles in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we're seeing. Like, you throw those in, and maybe it doesn't work, but if you build off of it, and you build off of it. So there's never going to be a perfect game call.
No.
Never.
No. I understand what you're saying. I just thought there was a few times they got a little too cute.
Head scratchers.
Right.
It's like, really? Like, why don't you do this on 2nd and 6?
Exactly. But like I said, one of the two I'm being critical of actually did work. This is coming off of a really incredible performance in New England, but we did just put a slight little footnote in there. We're just like, kind of, they destroyed them. It was so wonderful. Hey, remember they fumbled 5 times and recovered all of them? Well, this game they didn't. And that was a huge fumble by Montgomery. The very questionable, odd one with Herbert, where it was ruled a fumble. He definitely loses the ball, but then it looks like he regains it.
Yeah.
And then his knee is down and goes out. And I'm sitting here watching on the couch and like, he claims it. But then I'm like, no way that's definitive. I thought for sure they'd stay with the call on the field. Yeah. So he gets the luckily overturned.
I could have seen it either way.
Right.
The Bear fan inside me was clearly saying his knee was down.
Yeah, I was shocked about that one. And then I wrote down exactly what they did after that, because they got pretty lucky. I mean, the ball could have gone the other way.
They scored on that drive, right?
Oh, yeah. So then it was a Mooney 36-yard reception. Beautiful throw.
Yes.
And actually, Mooney, I think this was the first game this season. You know what I'm going to say?
No, but is this also the Diggs? No, this wasn't the Diggs. That's later.
Oh, I was just going to say first game this season where Mooney caught every target.
Oh, I didn't even recognize that.
I have to look and see how many that was. Then I put another pass to Mooney, beautiful adjustment on the sidearm to Mooney. So that must be one of the ones you're talking about. And it was a 6-yard gain. Then a first down run for Herbert, and then the touchdown run for Herbert from 12 yards out. So he actually bounced back. Yes, very good cut.
And I accidentally tweeted out that it was David Montgomery. I think that was just my wishful thinking because we have him in fantasy.
Yeah, well, now Herbert's probably the guy to have.
Yeah, he caught 5 of 5 targets.
There you go. Yardage probably wasn't
70. 70's not bad. Now, again, the issue at Darnell Mooney is getting into the end zone. Still 0 touchdowns on the day. But Cole Kmet. First touchdown since 2020.
Wow. We'll talk about this in a second, but just when you said how many yards Mooney had, do you know who leads the NFL in yardage? For a receiver, sorry.
Is it Jamar Chase?
No.
Okay.
He might be
Justin Jefferson. I mean, it's got to be one of those top type names, right?
Yeah, but it's Tyreek Hill.
Oh, I should have known that. He's also on our fantasy
Tyreek Hill is first. Second, I believe, is Diggs.
Okay.
Who's a full 200 yards behind Hill. That's who's coming into town, by the way.
Yeah.
And do you know who's number 4 on the list?
Jalen Waddle.
Jalen Waddle. So Bears, we'll get to that, but the Bears are going to have their hands full.
This is one week I'm kind of okay with it because we have two Tyreek Hill in fantasy. I know we're not supposed to say that as Bears fans, but come on. I just expect them to win this game.
It'd be interesting, though, to see. I mean,
if
you're really in a developmental year where you want to see if Fields has it, it's kind of a cool time to lose 41-38.
Well,
I'm never used to seeing the Bears in those type of games.
Here's the thing. If you also take away the Michael Parsons touchdown, that really shouldn't have been. And
that was bizarre.
Justin Fields jumping over him was kind of weird, too. Like, I don't know if he was afraid to, run into his helmet with his knees. I don't really understand it, because you could also just hurt yourself from leaping over players.
It's just funny how athletic he is that he jumped over him without touching him at all.
Right. It was
close. Because even if he brushes him,
he's
down.
All it takes. And his one knee got close, but didn't get there. And
it's like, Too athletic.
Right. So then that leads to a touchdown. Now, they could have scored anyway. I mean, I think they would have been in like the 30-something line.
Yeah, 39, 36, something like that.
But,
so had they scored anyway and taken more time off the clock, it actually hurts you.
Right.
It's not a good look.
But I wrote an article immediately after this game. I was writing it while the game was actually happening. And it's hard for especially Chicago Bears fans to see a defense struggle. And to be honest, I didn't care. And here's the reason why. Jaquan Brisker.
Yes.
Kyler Gordon.
Yes.
Dominique Robinson. Travis Gibson. All of those guys. Gibson.
Jack Sanborn.
Like, he's going to be the next Roquan Smith.
Well,
it's time for the Jack
Sanborn
Sanborn
to see him out there, though.
I'm going to be interested
in the
to
preseason,
see.
he was sideline to sideline.
I'm going to be interested to see if he's truly going to be the guy to be.
Let's see what he does.
I
to get more snaps.
Yeah, I mean,
he was already getting out there this game.
I hope that's the way that they go. Like,
why? At this point, why not go young? See what you have.
Agreed, but you cut Joe Thomas, right? And then you brought him back to play the position that I thought for sure Sanborn would have been playing in when Matt Adams was out. So maybe they just didn't view him as a Sam. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. But here, going back.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm very excited about the Jack Sanborn era. I did lose my train of thought, though. Oh, the young guys. Yeah. We're talking all young guys on this team. Like, a lot of the issues, like, okay, for example, one of the touchdowns was a communication error between Kyler Gordon and Eddie Jackson. Both of them follow the guy in motion. Well, clearly one of them shouldn't be. And my guess is that Gordon was the one that was supposed to say. And he should have been out there to contain. They followed CeeDee Lamb. Both of them kind of followed him across. Then they snap. They run the ball to the left. Dak Prescott goes in, like, untouched. Had he been there,
right? Had
Dominique Robinson done his job and chipped
right.
the I think it was the running back or it might have been a fullback coming out.
Yeah.
They would have had 2-on-1 for Dak instead of the opposite.
Right.
So, I mean,
Robinson's made some great plays this season, and he's made a few very clear rookie mistakes.
He was what? A tight end.
Yeah.
Just
receiver.
A receiver. I keep saying tight end.
So fast. Please give this man his wide receiver status.
Give him his number. I can't even remember who that was. Is that Sam Kamara?
Yes. What was it, though? 46?
46, yeah. Get this man a number. Yeah, so it's just, I mean, I'm not worried about the defense because I do think that, and even Jalen Johnson, young guys, 1 to 2 years into the league, like, these guys are going to continue to grow, and we're seeing it. So I'm okay with one of the best teams in football. Okay, Dak Prescott coming back does make a difference. I'm sorry, Cooper Rush fans. One of the better teams, I'll say. Not best. I'm not considering them a Super Bowl bound team, but they're definitely a playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
Who hadn't been doing anything or allowing anything from a defensive standpoint.
Yeah.
Gave him 29 points to the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
They easily, like I said, could have had 31.
Right.
32.
Yeah.
And I know we had some 30-point games last year with Trubisky, but, like,
it just
didn't feel this way. And it was against the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking, I don't know, the offense is clearly starting to click. Like you said, Luke Getsy has figured out what to do with Justin Fields.
Yeah. So, we did our preseason picks, and obviously there's so much you don't know in the preseason.
Yes.
From injuries to surprising trades. So, and I'm not even backing off of what I said. I'm still excited about this team. I still think there are some wins on their schedule.
I don't think they're going to get to my 9.
Well, I had them for 8.
And I had them
and you had them for 9. Okay, so I had them for 8. But I said at the time that I was willing to go 2 more or 2 fewer, and must have been a little coming off that last Cleveland game, feeling good about things. Kind of said it was more likely the higher than the lower, but
sure.
They're at 3 wins. They have, in my estimation, out of 9 games left, 3 are off the table in my mind. And that doesn't mean you can't pull an upset, because every week in the NFL there's an upset.
Christmas Eve is against Buffalo, and that's one of the 3 I'm assuming you're including.
Buffalo, Philly, and
maybe it's a Christmas miracle.
Well, who are my 3? Buffalo, Philly, and maybe was I counting Miami?
I mean,
or is there more of a juggernaut than that on their schedule?
So it's Miami,
And
Then the Packers.
No. In order?
Oh, not in order.
No. Okay, here it is.
It's Miami,
we got
Detroit.
two more against Detroit.
Miami, Detroit are the next two.
Okay, let's go in order. Miami, Detroit, Atlanta, Jets,
Jets,
Packers. Then your bye week, and then I don't know the order after that, but you got Philly, Buffalo,
Minnesota.
I must be missing one. But anyway, you got 2 against the Lions. You could win. You should win 1. You could win 2.
Count Detroit twice? I don't think you did. I mean,
Okay,
you said it, but didn't count it.
Maybe. So you got 2 more against Detroit. To me, you should win 1. You could win 2.
Can beat Atlanta.
And you could beat Atlanta. You can beat the Jets. So that's 4. I still think, I mean, I had them splitting with Green Bay, and that's looking better and better each week.
It sure is.
So let's say you win there. That's 5. And I had them splitting against Minnesota.
So you're getting to my 9 still.
Well, no. My point is, that's
possible.
all the ones that are even plausible.
Sure. Let's say they win half.
Exactly. So now you're just at your 6, which isn't a horrible season, especially if some of the losses. I mean, this loss didn't feel devastating. I mean, some weird, dumb plays that just made it look almost blowout-esque. We were still hoping for the cover, and it looked plausible.
Yes, and I referenced it earlier, but the title of my article that I wrote to be published as soon as the game was over was the Chicago Bears found a way to win despite loss to Dallas. Because they did. I mean, we need an offense, and you need an offense to win this league, and you can build the defense behind it. And we've not seen that. We need a quarterback. We have not seen a quarterback like this, and I'm not willing to just say he's found it.
Right.
But you're seeing the confidence. You're seeing the footwork. He's not as unsure about himself.
Right.
And these are key things. You get him a top wide receiver to put with Darnell Mooney.
Or you catch 1 or 2 of these catches each game we're talking about.
Yes, but
those
he's
are game-changing
with guys who shouldn't
Yeah, but
be.
I still feel like Velus Jones makes that catch 3 out of 5 times.
Yeah.
I hope.
I also feel like, though, he's not the player for that type of route. He should be, but he's more of a guy who's going to get the ball
close
15,
range,
20
slants,
yards.
and it's
then
yards
go.
after catch.
Yes. Not the guy who's going to make
but he can also run
catch.
but he can run by people.
Yes, so he needs to learn how to make that catch. But he's had some issues with that even in college.
So let me finish something here. We think they have some winnable games left on their schedule.
Yes.
You end up with 6, 7 wins, but you're showing progress on offense. 6, 7 wins actually from a draft pick status is probably a good thing. And you kind of feel like, okay, we have our guy. Let's build around him. Now you do what we've been talking about with Miami. Funny, they're coming into town, so we got to have a close-up look at what they've done.
Yeah.
You can very quickly put some good pieces around Fields, who's going to show that he's ready to make another step to be maybe a quarterback you win because of. And then you're having money and draft capital to also pick to fix a defense with a defensive-minded coach who I still do believe in.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Alan Williams can't be the problem.
No.
There are some things I think he's doing right when they were dialing up blitzes at the right time. 2 out of the last 3 games, that's been evident.
Even the Roquan one.
So my point is, if you look at next year's team, which obviously we don't know anything about that roster, but what we hope it can be, that's a team I would feel pretty good could win 10 games and be in talks of playoff contention.
Yeah, especially with the way that the rest of the NFC North is shaping up.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Dan Campbell might be out. Everyone is on the Dan Campbell. He's amazing because he can do up-downs with his team. They have 1 win?
Is there actually, there's a Madden curse. Is there a, what's the HBO?
Hard Knocks?
Hard Knocks, jinx? Are the teams ever good? I don't really recall a team being on Hard Knocks and then, going on a run.
I'm trying to think of, so I'm not
I don't watch it really much.
This was the first time I did, and I stopped watching it after 2 episodes because I couldn't get over watching Dan Campbell. He drove me insane.
And they're at what, 1 and
5?
5, I believe.
Right, because they already had a bye?
Yeah, they had their bye.
I don't know.
So wait.
But then we got...
They'd be more than that, though.
It's 1-6 because they lost this week. Maybe they were going 1-5 in it. Here, I'll just look at that.
Check that out real quick.
But then you got the Packers, who have the same record as the Bears. Yeah, they're 1-6.
1-6.
1-6.
Can you imagine?
You could luck into a win over that.
Can you imagine?
I mean, I don't. They lost 5 in a row. And they've had chances against certain teams, but they do what the Lions do, and they lose.
So we had 6 wins, only winning 3 of those 6 games that we talked about.
Yes.
Jets don't look real. I mean, their record's
They're
actually
up and
better.
down.
They're up and down.
But they just lost
Wilson looked rough yesterday.
And they just lost to the Patriots, who the Bears just won. So, again, a team that's beatable.
Atlanta,
they looked good for 2 weeks.
I think that's at home. I'm not positive.
No, it's
in
in
Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But we'll see.
That's also a stadium I feel like he would be, Justin Fields and like the faster guys, like
True.
they're going to fly in that area.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm now saying even 6 still seems a little low. 7 possible?
I need 7.
I can still get my 8.
I have money on them. I need 7.
Oh, yeah. I forgot you had that. I think it's doable.
I think it's doable.
And that's still giving away this week with Miami, giving away Buffalo, giving away Philly.
Right.
We'll see. Is Philly going 17-0? I don't think so.
No, they're going to lose eventually.
They'll lose some games, so we'll see. So, yeah, this was a weird game because if you just look at the final score, it should have felt a lot worse than it did.
Yeah.
But if you look at some of the plays that led to the loss, you see why they lost. Oh, we talked off camera. Fields had he had good statistics running, but actually that included one getting called back where I think he had like a 35-yard game down the right side. Looked like Lamar Jackson. I mean, It was like, is he going to take it to the house kind of thought. And they called it back on a Komet hold. It was a slight hold, and it was behind the play. Fields was already through.
Like, it looked to me like Cole Kmet, had the block perfectly fine, and Justin Fields gets around him and the defender goes to pull back to do a turn, obviously to chase down Justin Fields.
Which he wasn't going to be able to do.
Never was going to catch him. I mean, he was probably 4 or 5 yards past him at that point.
Yes.
And it was just that
slight bit of jersey.
It's just that Komet didn't quickly release enough because, and I think it's hard when you're in there and you got your hands in on somebody's shoulder pads and they decide to do okay, I'm going to run backwards. Like, it kind of catches you off guard a little bit.
Right.
And it just took him a second too long for the ref, apparently, to let go. But like you were saying, like,
inconsequential.
And there could be a holding call like that on almost every single play in the NFL.
So then, I would say it's a big play in the game. I mean, it still would have taken a lot because I don't remember exactly how much they were down, but it was 3rd and 1. Bears had just scored, but the game pretty much was going to be out of reach if they gave up anything. And it was the long run by Pollard for a touchdown. You watched that play very closely, and I want you to break it down for us because this was a 3rd and 1 that should have turned into like a 4th and 4. Bears get the ball, and who knows, maybe pull off some kind of at least excitement, but maybe miracle.
So I mentioned earlier in the Roquan Smith section, he had a rough game this game. I don't think that's why he got traded, but he had a rough game this game. I think he came away with 5 combined tackles, missed 2 tackles for loss, and one of them was on this play.
Yep.
Both him and Eddie Jackson had an opportunity to take Pollard down behind the line of scrimmage. -3, -2 yards. Bad angles by both of them. Miss. The Bears do everything right from a defensive standpoint. They contain. They keep him in. What they do is, and I just learned this term, but like they shell him in. And I watched this video with Corey Wooten, who was explaining all of this. And the running back is not supposed to be able to get out of this area. Nicholas Morrow has a perfect angle opportunity at him as a guy who's free. No one coming on him, no blockers, nothing. Bad angle. Tries to one-arm tackle Pollard. You're not going to do that.
Nope.
Gets away from him. He's gone. Then you got Jaquan Brisker coming in. Slightly bad angle. Not as bad as the other ones, but slightly bad.
But what else slightly happens to him?
I'm going to go back to you on that one because I agree with you, but I think you were the one that brought it up, and I'd prefer to hear it come from you.
Okay. Oh, so you already broke it down. Many mistakes have been made at this point. He's already got the first down, but it didn't need to be a touchdown. Brisker's held the same way that Komet held, where it's like, yeah, it didn't really make a difference. Plus, you already blew the play, so you should have been punished by not getting the call, which they didn't get.
Right.
He runs it down 54 yards, I want to say, for a touchdown.
Yep.
But Fields' 35-yard run was negated because of a ticky-tack hold You can call them on every play. You could have called it on that one. You didn't. I don't think either one should have been called, to be fair.
Sure. I agree with you.
So before we kind of transition to a brief talk about Miami, you said you had a stat. Did you share it?
I did.
Which one?
It was the Roquan Smith that he leads the NFL in 83.
Oh, okay.
Tackles.
I see.
Which, again, is, I mean, I know it's combined tackles, but even his...
83 is a lot. By, 8 games?
Yeah, he already has 52 solo tackles. Last year, he finished with 95 solos. Like,
did he miss any games last year?
No. All 17 games played.
Okay.
So he's on pace to beat that.
Well, you know what? Sometimes you go to a different team, play a different scheme, things change. I mean, he's an incredible player, and they have a lot of incredible players on their defense. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
At least this time, it's not a team the Bears have on their schedule.
Correct. Yeah.
And you'll probably get to see Roquan in the playoffs. So for those of you who are Roquan Smith fans and a bit bummed out, still keep cheering for him. You know, you'll get to see him play some playoff football.
He's an AFC team. You can cheer for him, you know, almost every game out of the year, minus maybe one every 4, and
That's
then
right.
in the Super Bowl.
So we talked a little bit about what's coming in Miami, and I think as a backdrop to this, you can think of them as maybe this is the model for what the Bears can be, because last year at this time, I don't think the Miami fan base or maybe even the Miami coaching staff was completely convinced in Tua. And outside of obviously
it's
the
clear,
concussion stuff from this year.
It's clear that they weren't when your owner is trying to get Tom Brady to illegally come to your team.
That's true. A lot of things about Tom Brady, though. I mean, but right, they weren't fully sold in on him. They weren't fully sold in on him. And now to have the number 1 receiver in the league, and the reason I even pointed out the gap, he's number 1 by a mile.
Yeah. And
then you have number 4. And I forget 2, I think was Diggs, and 3 is Justin Jefferson. 5 is Cooper Kupp.
Okay.
So you have 2 guys more productive than Cooper Kupp on your team. And granted, Tua missed some time, so not all those yards were Tua.
Right.
But this is an offense that's really clicking. And like you said, the Bears seem to be an offense that's clicking. So to ever think that we'd be watching a game that could be somewhat of a shootout, I mean, yes, you're right. Bear football, play defense. NFL football these days, you got to be able to put up points.
Yeah.
And eventually, if you can do that pretty consistently and get a defense, now you're those teams that can win 12 games, win 13 games.
The days of keeping every team to under double digits is just not going to happen. And typically, you're trying to keep them under 20.
Right.
Right? You keep a team under 20, you should win that game.
There have been many, many seasons watching the Bears offense where you weren't confident they'd get in the 20s.
No. I mean, the 12-7 loss to the Commanders was basically like what we would see in the before, only with Chicago on the winning side.
Yeah, true. So I'm not really sure what we're going to see, but to be honest, and again, I don't want to see them get thrashed. I don't think what happened in Dallas was a thrashing. That's kind of what we were saying, is it looked worse on the scoreboard than it actually felt.
Correct.
But that would be a bad outcome if Miami came to Chicago and just like completely blows them out. However, in the back of my mind, I'll also be thinking, can we beat them next year? But I don't think that's what's going to happen. But what were you going to say?
Well, I guess 2 things. One, they did just struggle against the Lions. Okay. They did win, but right, that was who they just played, if I recall correctly. And it was
it was
a somewhat.
I don't remember how.
I think they only won by 4. Spread was 3.5. I remember that because we got it correctly in our bet.
Right. That's right.
And I want to say they won by 4, 27-31. So that'd be 5. I can't do math.
Let me see. No, they won by 4, 31-27.
Oh yeah, that is 4. See, I told you I can't do math. Anyway, but they were losing for a large portion of that game. I was getting a little nervous about them even winning versus just covering.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say that they're a lock to beat Chicago, but 85% most likely. I mean, I'm not going to put money on Chicago winning this game, let me tell you. But what I do think they're going to struggle with is, you mentioned it, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. You're either going to have to use Jaquan Brisker or get, I don't know, some type of where you're running nickel, and you're using double coverage on both of them. Because if you leave one open, the other one's going to burn you. If you leave that guy open, they're going to burn you. So you either need to, I don't know, keep.
Well, you're going to need Jalen Johnson, Vildor, and Gordon to all have pretty much their best game. And like you said, Brisker and Jackson are going to have to be over the top, rolling over the top quite a bit. Because Hill, talk about taking the top off of defense. He can do that on almost any play.
Yeah. That's what I was hoping Velus Jones could be more like. Don't get me wrong. He had the deep ball, but
yeah, you got to catch it.
Tyreek Hill isn't always catching deep balls. He'll catch a 20-yard pass and take it to the house by making 3-4 guys miss.
True.
And
different style.
It's a different style, but the speed. That was one thing that stood out to me in this game when I saw Velus Jones. When he got the ball, I don't think it was technically a pop pass this time, but it was like the end around.
Right.
The speed in the game, you just see it. Right. I mean, they got to find ways to get him the ball,
right,
and give him opportunities to gain yards.
Well, and when we were crediting Getsy with starting to call, really clever game here and there, so I think that's a possibility. I just looked at the opening line. Care to guess?
What was the Dallas? It was opened at 10.5, I think.
I believe so. You said that. 10.5, 9.5.
I got it for 9.5.
Yeah. That was Bears on the road. This is Bears at home.
I'm going to say 7.5.
Interesting.
It's over 10.
Interesting. No.
Oh, okay.
Bears +3.
That's it. Wow.
That's weird, right?
That's very weird. I mean, that's technically 6 if you think about
on
it.
A neutral field or something like that.
Yeah, I thought for sure they would go.
It's almost the opposite of what I thought the time before. Because when the Bears played really well on Monday night, I thought that would immediately make them set the line more aggressively in favor of the Bears.
Right.
And get a bunch of Bears
people like
money.
Me betting money.
And then it backs up. But it's kind of the opposite. Because then they did lose by 20.
Right.
And then the line opens kind of... You're sitting here thinking, could it be headed towards double digits in favor of Miami? Now, granted, Miami's not very impressive enough to go on the road and be double-digit favorites. So we'll have to see. But I'm just going to be excited to kind of watch. Tua's in year 3, and they've put the weapons around him. Fields is in year 2 and starting to show signs. Obviously, there's a lack of weapons. But, and we kind of tossed him in and then barely talked about him, N'Keal Harry maybe is a pretty good thing.
He was a first-round draft pick for a reason. Now, it doesn't always work out. Well, Kevin White.
Well, my son and I were talking, again, Bears in the draft, in free agency, through trade, somehow, some way are going to be trying to bring in, a top-flight receiver next year.
Yeah.
Now, maybe you re-sign Harry and you have that guy, whoever it is, top guy, Harry, Mooney, and maybe another draft pick or mid-range. All of a sudden, you have a receiving core and you have Fields. So... I'm thinking next year is exciting, and by watching Miami, it's like you're looking into the time machine a little bit.
Miami
and if you can just pull off
Philadelphia, those are the two. I mean, that's
true.
And Ian Cunningham came from Philadelphia, so he's seen this firsthand.
Right.
I think that was a big reason why Robert Quinn was part of that. Was traded to Philly. There was a connection there, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be sad, to be honest, to see him go. And I know this is speaking way too soon, but I do think the combination of Poles and Cunningham was a fantastic pairing. And eventually, one of those guys is going to get. One of those guys. It'll be Cunningham going to a new team.
Okay. Well, they always say if you're coordinators and if you're assistant GMs and those people are getting pulled, it probably means good things are happening.
The only bad thing is then you might turn into the Green Bay Packers.
Oh, I don't totally know what you mean by that.
I mean, he lost Hackett, lost Getsy, and I'm not saying this is the reason why they're struggling.
No. But, I thought you meant.
But it could be a part of it.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm just, it's crazy to think that both the Packers and Bears are sitting at 3-5 and how different the conversations might be for those fan bases.
And Minnesota almost lost this week, too, to Arizona. Had they lost, the Bears would still be in the hunt.
I think they are, man. Everyone's in the hunt. There's a lot of parity. The league is very murky.
So real quick, this is why I am actually glad about, and I've always been a Ryan Poles supporter from day one, before he was even brought in. He is looking big picture. He's not sitting in his team and seeing like, okay, we're 3-5, we got a chance. No, he's selling off assets he doesn't see long term.
Right.
Like, not a lot of teams do that.
Right.
Not a lot of teams look at themselves in the mirror. Look at the White Sox. I mean, totally different sport, but how often do they get to a point when they're just like, they're sitting around the middle, they're in a weak division, they could be buyers, they could be sellers, they could be buyers, they could be sellers, so they just do squat.
Mm-hmm.
Or what they buy is crap and what they sell is for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's you give away players you shouldn't for guys like James Shields. But
I just think, and it's hard to compare different sports, but, you know, the thing that's going to be so crazy and impressive to me, and Fields will have to be the major exception, I would say, but how quickly he can have a 53-man roster that is almost all his players. Like I said, Fields will be the holdover for sure.
The only defensive player who was on the 2018 Chicago Bears, I believe this is correct, is Eddie Jackson.
I was going to say it has to be Eddie Jackson. But...
I believe he's the only one left.
Wow.
DeAndre Houston Carson, maybe.
Interesting. But it's not going to be long before this team is almost entirely flipped.
Yep.
And if you believe in their scouting and all that stuff, which they obviously believe in it, you're quickly going to reset the team to your like what you want it to be.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think it's unrealistic that anyone should have thought or should think that a first-year coach and a first-year GM are just going to come in and boom, unless it's Brian Dable.
Hey, they lost this week, so his stock is going down.
Way down. But this is an exciting team for the future and in the present.
Yep.
I'm not going to write them off this week. I think I did actually earlier in what I said, but
I'm writing them off.
I said those three are like these are losses for sure.
Yeah.
Could one of those be a win? Sure, maybe.
You said it.
But I said, of these 6 winnable games, we were only giving them 3.
Yep.
What if they get 4 of those and 1 of those? What if they get 5 of them?
Right.
So we'll see.
In the hunt.
In the hunt. So we were kind of all over the place with the Hallis Huddle there because it's just an exciting time.
It is.
And I'm sorry to say this, Rob. Tomorrow's the trade deadline. I don't know if there's going to be another big thing. If there's another big thing, you might have to do a short on it.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. I can't keep giving up times to evenings and such. I might jump on. We'll see. Or maybe they'll stand pat.
To be honest, I doubt there's going to be anything big, but we'll figure it out.
Okay. Roll with it.
Yeah.
So we'll keep putting out content. Hopefully you're enjoying it, and you keep listening. Thank you very much.
Bear down.
Bear down.